Check out these pens I just bought off Aliexpress. These are brush pens. This one here has a rubber seal here and a fountain pen refill cartridge. This larger, fancier one doesn't have a fountain pen refill cartridge, but the whole thing basically is a refill cartridge, which is pretty cool. Just imagine all the ink you can fit in there. Oh yeah. Could draw all day with that. Also comes with the rubber seal right here to stop any ink from leaking out. So this one here cost about this much, and this one here cost about this much, I think. I'm going to be refilling these pens with this cheap drawing ink got from Daiso, whatever, because I can. The fountain pen method, I'll just in the ink and then twist it up. Oh, the ink always smells a bit weird. Now the big fancy pen. See how much ink you can fit in this thing. Should have left it in there a bit longer. Let the air pressure equalise. Let's try that again. Could feel the suction. Just leave it in there. Oh yeah. Completely full. I haven't had a lot of good quality experiences with brush pens, so my first brush pen was this cheap disposable Daiso, you know, that Japanese shop I have trouble pronouncing, brush pen, which, you know, it worked quite well. It's a bit dry at times, but fine for the most part. I actually kept on refilling this one with the same ink I just refill these with. And I got like another couple of years out of it basically. And it cost me $2.80, so that was a pretty good bargain. And I've also used a lot of cheaper brush pens, which cost like $1 or something, and I fill them with like an ink wash. I've also used larger water brush pens and I just fill them with ink. That's what I usually do. I get a water brush pen and I fill it with ink, and sometimes I get good results. Like this one seems to be quite okay. It's often very dry though. It's either too dry or it's too inky. Like often it's about as inky as an octopus who has swallowed a bottle of ink, you know. It's like really out of control. Right now it's in its dry phase though, so it's like it's dry season. Now, which one will I try out first? Oh yes. Ooh. The cheaper one, okay. Smaller, lighter version. Oh, I always find this seems to unscrew. Why is that? Maybe I didn't screw it up properly. Okay, here we go. Well, that's nice. Yep. Large strokes, thin strokes. How thin can I go with this? See, that's thick. That's thin. Oh yeah, that's some pretty good detail there. Check out that posting. It's pretty, doesn't go anywhere. Pretty comfortable to hold. It's just like a hard plastic pen. So it's a bit dry when I go fast, but that's probably much the same with any brush pen. The thicker the lines, the slower you have to go. There you go. Slightly dry now. It's not as inky as it was when I did these here. So let's try this again. It's not as inky. It's also possible this ink is clogging it up as well. I don't know. Maybe I should have used some fountain pen ink instead. What's wrong with me? I can't talk. Okay, let's try the bigger pen. Oh, that's a very tight fitting post, that. Oh, that's inky. That is very inky. Hang on. It's going to dry up a bit. Now I'm wondering of these two pens, if the nib sizes are basically identical. Are they identical? They look much the same. I think they basically have exactly the same brush size on them. Except the ink flow doesn't flow as fast out of this one for some reason. Actually, I better make sure it's not just because I've used this one for longer. So let's use this one for longer. A good thing about this brush pen is that if it's too dry, you can just squeeze a tiny bit out just by twisting the end here. Oh yeah. But you should be able to draw with it without any problem. without twisting it. It's pretty good, this brush pen. I honestly think it's worth spending the extra, I don't know what it was, $3 or something for this one, just because of this feature here, where you can force ink out the end of it just in case you need it. Man, you got to know when to stop drawing sometimes, don't you? So in short, these pens are very good value. But I do prefer the bigger one. This one, it's okay. This pen here has been sitting by itself, unused for a couple of days in a hot room, and it's completely dry. No ink is coming out of here in a hurry. This is probably because it has no rubber seal just here to keep the moisture in between the pen cap. Whereas a slightly more expensive one does have the rubber seal, and it never dried out over the past couple of days. It's become very inky though. Very, very inky. Don't know what I'm drawing anymore. Another feature I found about this slightly more expensive one is that when you're refilling it and you don't want to accidentally unwind the ink, pouring the ink out with this winder at the back here, if you wind it back far enough, it actually clicks into place, so it doesn't unwind by itself. So over a few days I did do some quick ink sketches with this pen, the larger, slightly more expensive one. and I'm pretty happy with it. Sometimes it's the ink flow is slightly unpredictable, but for the most part I'm very happy with it. That's a three-headed donkey riding a jetpack thing, and that's a furry looking dinosaur. Some more dinosaurs, all done with this pen here. This pen, this pen, this pen. Don't know what's happening here. Yeah, anyway. It did leak into the cap of the pen at some stage over the last couple of days, but this rubber seal here saved the day, and there was no ink leakage anywhere. Though it does look the ink here is slowly making its way up into the screw mechanism. So this double seal here seems to be holding it for now, but maybe one day in the future it will escape, who knows. But all up, I think this is a pretty good brush pen. It's a bit on the inky side. But considering it cost only like about $5, I'd say it's a winner. I noticed after quite some time that this Sumi ink is clogging up the brush pens pretty badly, and the ink flow that comes out of them is really unreliable. Especially the smaller brush pen doesn't seem to cope with it very well. It will clog up after and just dry out after, half a day of just sitting on the table, even with the pen cap on, because the pen cap lacks a rubber seal to keep the moisture in. So I decided to wash out the previous ink out of the smaller one, which took a while. I did many cycles of water, just flowing in and out of the pen, sucking water in and pushing it out. And I replaced that ink with the Parker Quink ink, which is designed for fountain pens. And fountain pens are probably some of the most cloggable pens ever designed, so I thought this was a good candidate. And now the pen is much more reliable. But the ink is not as black, and because it's a dye-based ink, it's probably not light fast much either. And it's also highly water-soluble, even when it's dry. I mean, the Sumi ink is slightly water-soluble as well, but the Quink ink, the actual substance that makes it black, the dye in it, is also water-soluble, so it's even worse. But it seems to be ideal for colouring with alcohol markers, which I've barely used before. The other ink, the Sumi ink, is basically made out of vegetable soot and some kind of binder, which is water soluble, and also water as well, of course. And it's kind of sticky just before it dries. It also has this real kind of dirty, earthy smell to it. And it's meant for dip pens and brushes, but I've been purposefully misusing it to refill pens for ages, often with good results. The larger brush pen, as I've mentioned before, seems to cope with it better, and I've done more drawings with it, with that same ink in it, that are quite strange, weird, meshes of different, fragmented concepts from unformed universes. Well done. You've made it to the end. This is your reward for your patience. I'm sorry about that.